What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we take a look at 10 highest paid MMA fighters. Be sure to like today's video and to subscribe. Also comment down below letting me know that you subscribed so that you can automatically be entered into this month's shoutout giveaway. Coming in at number 10 we have Tito Ortiz, $15 million. The Huntington Beach bad boy in his prime time was the biggest pay-per-view draw on the planet, considering he fought guys like Chuck Liddell and Forrest Griffin. The now UFC Hall of Famer is CEO of Punishment Athletics and owns his own gym. So needless to say, he is taking that $15 million he made in UFC and using it wisely. Coming in at number 9 we have Randy Couture, $17 million. Randy Couture was one of the OG MMA fighters in the UFC. Randy was also the very first person in the UFC to have held 2 titles in multiple weight divisions, and is also the only fighter to come back and win a championship after becoming a UFC Hall of Famer. And despite him making $17 million with UFC, Randy has seen success after the UFC as well, starring in movies like The Expendables. Coming in at number 8, we have Wanderlei Silva, $18 million. Wanderlei Silva was perhaps the best fighter in Pride history, and during his time with Pride in UFC, he made quite the bank account for himself, making $18 million. Wanderlei holds many different records in Japan from his Pride fighting days and is still one of the baddest dudes on the planet. Coming in at number 7 we have Fedor Emelianenko, $18 million. Fedor is perhaps one guy on this list that you've never heard of. And the reason behind that is because he was never signed by the UFC. However, despite never being signed by the UFC, Fedor is widely considered the greatest of all time of MMA. And I personally have never seen the guy fight, but if you can rack up $18 million in MMA without being in the UFC, then you have to at least be half decent. Coming in at number 6 we have Anderson Silva, $18 million. Anderson the Spider Silva is a UFC superstar and idol that a lot of young UFC fighters, including Conor Mcgregor, looks up to. The 44-year-old fighter is also the most internationally famous MMA fighter ever, and despite racking up $18 million with the UFC, Anderson Silva also has multiple businesses and even a sponsorship with Nike. Coming in at number 5 we have BJ Penn, $22 million. BJ Penn, who was a crushing lightweight and welterweight champion, is for sure on the list as one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time. And how much money he made while he was in the UFC reflects just how good he was. BJ Penn racked up $22 million. Coming in at number 4 we have Brock Lesnar, $28 million. Brock Lesnar goes on the same list as Mike Tyson when it comes to one of the scariest guys to step in the ring with. And just like Tyson, Brock's dominance showed because he destroyed the heavyweight division in the UFC for quite some time before Cain Velasquez finally put an end to his reign. But not before Brock racked up $28 million. Brock is now no longer with the UFC, but is also still making bank as a WWE wrestler. Coming in at number 3 we have George St. Pierre, $30 million. If you don't know who GSP is, then you've probably been living under a rock for the past 20 years. Because this man single-handedly destroyed opponents in the UFC. When debating on who is the greatest UFC fighter of all time, George St. Pierre is definitely in the conversation because of the amazing things he'd done during his career. George racked up $30 million in his career and gained tons of respect from around the globe. And just like Anderson Silva, a lot of fighters look up to GSP as their idol, including Khabib Nurmagomedov. Coming in at number 2, we have Rorian Gracie, $50 million. Rorian Gracie is one of the few BJJ red belts on the planet and was actually the co-founder of the UFC, which just contributes to his wealth. However, despite co-founding the UFC, Gracie is quite the fighter and has even trained US Marines. Gracie racked up $50 million during his time with the UFC and when he sold the UFC. Coming in at number 1, we have Conor McGregor, $110 million. Conor is a household name in this day and age, and the young Irishman has made quite the name for himself at such a young age. Now, while Conor has racked up $110 million, not even half of that has came from the UFC. Most of Conor's money came from his boxing debut with Floyd Money Mayweather. But besides that, Conor has made a little money from UFC and also makes money selling his own Proper 12 Irish whiskey.